All right, hi everyone. Welcome Wednesday edition Believe in Bills. Adam Benigni, WGRZ TV. Sal Maiorana of the Rochester Democrat and Chronicle, who's at One Bills Drive as the Bills get ready to face the New York Jets on the road this weekend, looking to go 2-0. We'll get into some of that, but I mean it obviously begs the question, Sal. To what extent have you recovered from what went down on Sunday night?
Yeah, I mean, I've recovered. It took a couple days, I think, getting to bed at 2:30 in the morning. But for the players, it's more important that they recover. And, that's, a couple guys I talked to today, they give you the same line about, yeah, you enjoy it for 24 hours and you move on. It's the NFL. But, a couple guys, I talked to Connor McGovern, and he admitted that, yeah, I mean, it's hard to come down when you win a game like that. And he admitted he hasn't been a part of too many games, at least that went the right side, as the one the other night did for the Bills. It is a little bit difficult to get refocused. And he made the point, he even said, you go from the high of a Sunday night football game where the whole world is watching, and then you play the way you did and win. And now you've got to regroup, and you've got just a boring, regular 1 o'clock game on Sunday afternoon. And he even said he talked to a couple of the young guys, probably a couple rookies, and said, look, this is what it is in the NFL. You put the one game behind you, and you can only worry about what's in front, no matter what time of the day the game is. They all matter. They're all important. So that was the big thing that some of these guys have to realize this week. Is last week is over, as crazy and great as it was, and now you've got an AFC East team staring at you Sunday afternoon.
All right, so we'll get into more of what happened on Sunday night, kind of woven into our initial look ahead to the Bills matchup with the Jets. But there's speaking of getting back to business, some news items. So Trey White, he was out there. Looks like he's a possibility, right? And then we got a situation with Taron Johnson, who missed practice today, quad. That raises your eyebrows a little bit, at least initially, along with Shaq Thompson with a hamstring. Bring us up to speed on the injury front if you can.
Yeah, I mean, Trey White was out there today. First time in, August 21st was the day he got hurt. So I think, McDermott isn't going to come right out and say he's playing, but it felt like he's believing that Trey White can get back together this week and get out there for Sunday's game. I think he was probably close last week, and they wanted to play it safe with him. And I understandably, with all the injuries he's had, I think that was the right call. It was interesting that he did say that Dorian Strong played, pretty well. I mean, for a defense that gave up 40 points, you can't really say anybody played well. But I will say, Adam, that I thought he held up. I mean, he held up as well as anybody else did. And he was, quite frankly, better than Taylor Rapp, Cole Bishop, Matt Milano, Terrell Bernard. I mean, he was okay. So maybe they're not too worried about starting Dorian Strong again if they had to. But all things being equal, I think that McDermott would like to get Trey White on the field, at least knowing, too, that Dorian Strong can go in there if need be. And then you mentioned Taron Johnson. I mean, it was a quad injury. It apparently flared up yesterday. I'm not quite sure what the hell they're doing on Tuesday that it would flare up all of a sudden, because he didn't mention him on Monday when he went over the injury report. So that's a little bit concerning, I guess. We'll see where it goes. Cam Lewis, I guess, would have to play. Maybe Jordan Hancock, who was inactive last week, maybe he'll get the call. But they would certainly miss Taron Johnson if he had to sit out.
Certainly. We all know how valuable he is to the Buffalo defense. Change at punter, too.
Yeah.
Right? Cameron Johnston, tell us about him to the extent you can.
Yeah, that kind of came out of nowhere. I mean, Robbins last year, or the last time he played in the NFL, he was like one of the worst punters in the league. That's why he was out of a job with the Bengals. So he came in and, they started off with him and Jake Camarda. They moved on from Camarda before training camp. And, in watching Robbins throughout the camp and then in the preseason, it was nothing spectacular or great, but I certainly didn't see any reason why they had to cut him. I mean, the other night wasn't great. I think he had a 38 net average on his 5 punts. So that's, obviously not great. I don't really track hang time and all the other things that some of these guys do with their stopwatches, but Apparently they weren't happy and they moved on from him. I don't know anything about this new punter. You probably know more than I do. You know me and punters, Adam. They're like Spinal Tap drummers. They just,
Yeah, right.
they're here and they're
Right.
gone, right? So I don't know. We'll see. But they made the move. It's a punter. I really don't think there's a great big difference top to bottom in the NFL, but apparently they think so. So we'll see.
All right, so we'll see how that plays out. No surprise here, Josh Allen, AFC Offensive Player of the Week. I mean, that title is probably an understatement given what or how he performed on Sunday night. FanDuel, as they look toward the matchup with the Jets, the over/under for him, 231 passing yards, 1.5 touchdowns. I think he'll exceed that number, particularly in terms of touchdown passes. But that's the way the numbers are shaping up right now, and the odds. We'll get into more of that on Friday, specific to the matchup. But going against this Jets defense, which has been formidable, and they've had issues down at MetLife in the past. But looking at the production of Aaron Rodgers and the Steelers, I mean, with what Buffalo showed and what they appear to be bringing to the table on that side of the ball again this year, is there any reason to think they won't go down there and be extremely productive?
No, I mean, look, the Bills have a fantastic offense. We know this. We've known this for a few years, and they put 41 points up on a pretty good Baltimore defense. Now, there are stars on that Ravens defense, and the Bills blew them out of the water with those 41 points and almost 500 yards of total offense. So, sure, the Bills could go down and do the same thing to the Jets. They won't, in my opinion. Again, this is an AFC East game, Adam. You know as well as I do that the division opponents know each other very well. And even though it's a mostly new Jets coaching staff down there, it probably is all new. There's a couple of guys that might have been retained from the previous staff, but they know the Bills. Aaron Glenn is a defensive head coach at heart, and he's got some good players to work with. Now, we've seen the Jets have success against the Bills. They're very good up front. Quinnen Williams is a star in the middle. He's always been a problem for the Bills. They got a couple really good, active, athletic linebackers. Jamian Sherwood is one of them. And then in the backfield, got a really good cornerback in Sauce Gardner. They've got some decent players back there. So I don't think the Bills are going to go down and put 41 and 500 yards on this Jets defense. That being said, sure, they could have a great game and win going away. Absolutely.
Well, one of the things that bodes well for Buffalo is Keon Coleman, right? At least based on one game. And we kind of touched on this Sunday night in our live YouTube show after that Bills comeback win. But I saw a lot from him, what you've been hearing about him and seeing happen in training camp and the confidence, the athleticism, the route running, the concentration, the reaction, for example, like on that tip ball, right? I mean, that can be that could be a difficult play, right? But what I really saw too, along with all of that, is that he was making big plays at key moments when they needed him the most, right?
And Allen was looking for him.
That builds trust, I was just going to say, between the quarterback and Allen and Coleman, which is something they've obviously been looking to really get that process expedited in a significant way. I think Sunday night was a big step in that direction.
It was. I mean, look, the biggest knock on Keon Coleman has been the inconsistency, right? I mean, there's times when he looks spectacular, and then other times where you just scratch your head. And, like the other night, the first ball thrown to him was a quick screen. He just dropped it. I mean, it was right in his hands, and he dropped it. He really didn't do much for the first 3 quarters. Inconsistency has been the word that we've used with him. And then, for whatever reason, the light went on in the fourth quarter, and he started to win on a few of his routes. Made the catches when the ball came to him, and he ended up with 8 catches for 112 yards. And then the touchdown play, you're right. Like you said, he's finishing his route in the back of the end zone. It was kind of a scramble drill, right? Allen had to roll out of the pocket. They all have their jobs to do in the scramble drill. And the Bills caught a big break because he was trying to throw it to Dawson Knox and he airmailed it. But Keon Coleman happened to be right there. And even when the ball changed direction, concentrated, brought it in. That was a big touchdown. I mean, without that touchdown, they don't – you can say that about 10 plays. Without that play, they don't win the game. Well, without those 7 points, it was 6 points. they don't win the game. So, yeah, it was nice to see. Adam, one of the biggest plays, and it wasn't anything that Keon did, but you got to remember when he caught that last ball over the middle, it's a damn good thing he didn't score. He was going to the end zone. If he wanted to take that to the house, and if Jair Alexander hadn't tripped him, now, look, the Ravens would have had 40 seconds, but they would have had 3 timeouts, would have needed a touchdown. But would you want to put the Bills defense against Lamar Jackson in that situation? No. So unwittingly, Keon going down and not being able to maintain his balance probably saved the game played a role in saving the game for the Bills.
Yeah, there's no question about that. And then after that, of course, managed at the end as Prater kicks the game-winning field goal literally as time expired.
And there again, that shows you, Adam, the importance of timeouts, right? Mm-hmm. That's why when these coaches, early in the third quarter, the play clock is running out and it's 2nd and 7, and they waste a timeout. I'm like, watch the game the other night. Both teams had all 3 of their timeouts at the 2-minute warning. How important are those timeouts? Now, for the Ravens, it ended up not mattering, of course, because they couldn't get the ball back. But for the Bills, just having only 2 timeouts would have given the Ravens an opportunity, right? I mean, it would have given them the opportunity. They would have got the clock down to maybe 30 seconds before they kicked the field goal. And who knows? We've seen crazy shit happen before. So getting the clock to 0 because you had all 3 timeouts, it just hammers home the point. Yes. Those are precious. Don't waste those. First half, okay, I get it. But in the second half, there should be almost no situation where a team doesn't have all 3 going into the last 2 minutes of the game. There should be no situation.
I agree.
It's 5 yards.
Well said.
It's 5 friggin' yards in the year 2025 when offense is off the chart. It's 5 yards. Just eat the 5 yards.
Good point. Let me ask you this. Now, we all know where the Ravens rank in terms of run defense at the top of the league, right? And, what they're good at a lot of things, and that is certainly, an elite aspect of that defense. Having said that, do you have any concern about the Bills? I'm not saying I do, but what's your take on the Bills, run game at this point coming out of, what do you take, if anything, from that matchup against Baltimore?
Yeah, I really don't. I mean, you're right. That's a good Baltimore defense. We just talked about. They got stars on that defense, so that was fine. Plus, the way the game script went at them, especially in the second half, there they really didn't have time to screw around running the ball.
Sure.
Outside of all the quarterback sneaks, a few of them which did not work. Allen was asked about that today too. He's not worried, but I think other people are because that play, the last 2 games they've played now, has not gone very well. But no, I'm not worried about their offense or their run offense. Cook didn't really have many opportunities in the game. His biggest play came on a catch and run. I thought Ray Davis didn't have a very good game. I mean, I didn't like the way he ran the ball. Very tentative in the few opportunities that he had. And then Ty Johnson is more of a pass catching guy. So now I'm not too concerned about it. Offensive line, look, that was a tough chore. That's a good front that the Ravens throw at you. We can judge the run offense for the Bills as we go forward. This week, for instance, this is going to be, it's a decent front that they're going to be playing for the second week in a row. So let's see how it goes in this game.
Let's talk, speaking of run defense, as we shift gears to that side of the ball now.
I'll be worried about.
This is, I probably shouldn't have waited this long into the podcast to bring this up, but look, I understand that's Derrick Henry, but you look at that game, the one-on-ones they lost, the fundamentals, the flaws that you could see, right? And then getting caught out of position like they did.
Yeah.
I mean, there's like a laundry list of red and yellow flags coming out of that game that, I understand Breece Hall isn't Derrick Henry, right? But
he's good.
I think they have some issues on that side of the ball. When you hear Babbage talk about the need to really get things corrected, they've got a ways to go there, I think.
Yeah. Well, look, as I watched that game back, the defensive line, of course, everyone's going to say they got manhandled. And I think I even used that word Sunday night before I had actually gone back and seen what happened, which, there's a lesson right there. It wasn't so much that the D-line got killed. I mean, it wasn't great, but they didn't get killed like I thought they did. There were some holes there. The problem, Adam, was Bernard and Milano were terrible. And then once you got past that level, Rapp and Bishop were terrible.
Yeah, right.
So the guys in the middle of the field that are supposed to be making the tackles, your D line is supposed to hold up, fit the run, whatever they say, occupy blockers, and that gives the opportunity for the guys behind them to come up and make plays. Those are the guys who failed. Bernard and Milano were just terrible. That might have been the worst game they've played together since they've been together. They were taking bad angles. They couldn't get off blocks. And then, they fell. And then you got Cole Bishop and Taylor Rapp.
Yeah, right.
The touchdown that Henry scored in the fourth quarter. Watch Taylor Rapp's route on that play. It was ridiculous. I don't even know how you could play it that poorly. And he did. And it ended up being a 46-yard touchdown. They've got to clean that aspect up even before they start talking about the D-line. Look, the D-line's got two rookies that are playing, like they played, 15, 18 snaps, something like that each the other night. So they're working these young guys in. Javon Solomon had to play on the edge. So, I get that there's a little bit of stuff there, and your more veteran guys were in the defensive, the back seven. But, man, they do have a lot of work. They can't – Breece Hall's a good player, man. He's got 200-yard games against the Bills already in his career. They've got an offensive line that I think shocked some people last week. They have a rookie right tackle. I think his name is Membu, who completely wiped J.J. Watt out of the game. In his first game in the NFL, he's got J.J. Watt, and he completely neutralized him. They have a tackle on the other side who was a second-year guy who's pretty good. They've got a really good player in Joe Tippmann on the inside. They got a pretty good offensive line. So the Bills are going to be up against it this week on that side.
Right, we'll get to that in just a second, but I wanted to ask you about Cole Bishop one more time. And, that's not to single him out. As you said, Rapp had just a really tough night against Baltimore. But I raised this on our Monday night show, Sports Talk Live with Vic Carucci and John Scott. Now, I'll throw it out to you. I mean, he was obviously drafted for his athleticism, right? We've seen that. But at this point, and I know he spent time injured, which has been a problem, right? So time on task is an issue. But is it fair? I think it is to raise, I'll use the term football instinct, right? Anticipation, knowing where to be. I mean, what read on that aspect of his game do you have? Or is it too early for you to kind of, focus on that?
Yeah, I mean, it's not too early because he's already been here 2 years. So we've seen him play. Last year, he was a full-time starter. So we've seen enough of him. I think he's a good athlete. I just think you mentioned it. Instincts are so important at safety. I mean, we saw that for years with Hyde and Poyer. Instincts were what got them by. They were both good athletes, but they were so instinctual and smart, knew the defense so well, knew exactly where they needed to be and what everybody else was doing in the defensive call. And Taylor Rapp, just right now, I don't know. It just seems like there's a disconnect there. Maybe it was because, him and Bishop have not played a whole lot together, right? They played the second half of the year. I think Bishop had 430 snaps total last year. So that's not a lot of time. And probably some of those weren't with Rapp, because I think Rapp was hurt at one point late in the year. So, and then they missed all of training camp together, or pretty much all of it. So that could be part of it, because communication is so important. But there were just mental mistakes, Adam. It had nothing to do with, I don't think, being a bad athlete. It was just poor reads and just poor recognition, too late to process what was happening. And then by the time you do that, Derrick Henry is gone, because he's a great, great player. So they got to clean it up. And, as we said, moving forward now, Breece Hall is a good back. I mean, this is a guy that has done well against the Bills. They're going to have to be much better than they were last week when they faced Derrick Henry.
Well, there's also, there's the aspect, and this is by no means an excuse, but you worry about what Lamar Jackson is doing, and then he, disguises it or whatever, and you get a foot, you move in the wrong direction, and then bang, you're kind of off in terms of the play and off in terms of your read of it. So that Jackson adds a certain level of difficulty, right? A degree of difficulty in handling that situation, but they have to be vastly better as they have
Yeah.
to be on so many
And what
aspects of that defense. Go
and
ahead.
what worries you is that, this Jets team, when you look at the way they're playing offense, they're a little bit similar to the Ravens, because Justin Fields, now he's not Lamar Jackson, but Justin Fields is a terrific athlete. He had a nice day running the ball against the Steelers, and you mix him with Breece Hall, they can do a little bit of the stuff that Baltimore did in this past game. So, I guess the good news is the Bills have seen the best team in the league with that 1-2 combination. They've seen that. They made their mistakes. Now they get them corrected against a team that might try to do some similar things. And really, you mix into it. Baltimore had Zay Flowers. New York's got Garrett Wilson. So both teams have, a skill position guy, one at each spot. That's really pretty good. And then the depth kind of falls off a little bit. So it's a very similar test for the Bills defense this week going against the Jets, just not quite the superstar status that they just saw.
And we're going to get into the matchup, the specifics of it with the Jets on Friday. But anything to the extent you've been able to watch that matchup with the Steelers, and it's a game that gets away from them, but clearly Aaron Glenn, it's one game and you get a new coach jump and that sort of a thing, but he's obviously trying to establish a program. That franchise desperately needed it. There was a lot of good to take away from that game in terms of the Jets and Fields. What were your initial impressions?
Yeah, I was impressed. They took a 60-yard field goal at the end of the game for the Jets to win it, or for the Steelers to win it. So the Jets were right there. The problem with the Jets, as it always has been, they made some big mistakes. Xavier Gipson, Bills fans remember Xavier Gipson, the guy who scored the walk-off punt and return touchdown 2 years ago. He had a critical fumble in that game the other night, and that turned the game in Pittsburgh's favor. Aaron Glenn cut the dude. He cut the dude on Tuesday. So there you go. New culture, new coach. Same mistakes the Jets have made in the past, but one guy paid the price last week for sure. All right. I think we have lost Adam. So I think I'm going to go up here because I think I can do this, and I'm going to end the recording. We are going to be back on Friday with another show. We're going to have Antoine Staley, who covers the Jets for The Athletic, on the show Friday. So we will see you then. This is Believe in Bills. Thank you for being here.